Hello, my name is Matt and welcome to the final video in my three-part analysis of the Big 3 conferences of E3 2014. This week I'm casting a ride-at eye over the Nintendo press conference and generally taking every opportunity to be a sarcastic bastard about it, if you can even call it a press conference. Which you can't, by the way, because it technically isn't, although that's not going to stop me treating it like one. You see, Nintendo haven't done a traditional live, stage-based E3 press conference since E3 2012. For E3 2013 they opted instead to stream a pre-recorded presentation over the internet, and they've done the same for E3 2014. Well, not quite the same. For a start, their 2013 presentation wasn't hosted by a stop-motion doll, courtesy of the folks behind the TV show Robot Chicken, who almost immediately poked fun at Nintendo fans in a way I wouldn't have expected Nintendo to approve of.
Come on, Reggie, give us Mother 3!
How about this instead?
If you don't know what Mother 3 is, don't worry too much, it's not important. Besides grabbing my attention and confirming there'd be no new Mario game announced, thank God, this intro also made the Nintendo conference instantly more memorable than Microsoft and Sony's. Which is certainly one advantage of doing canned, pre-filmed presentations, besides being able to experiment a bit, have some fun and generally include all sorts of stuff you can't feasibly do in a live presentation. Like a Matrix-style punch-up between two top Nintendo executives. You'll never see Sony's Andrew House or Microsoft's Phil Spencer doing this sort of thing, which is a crying shame as I'd pay good money to. The purpose of this hyperkinetic punch-up was to show how you can play a Mii version of yourself in the new Super Smash Bros. As either a brawler, sword fighter or gunner. It's basically 3 new characters added to the roster, except you can customise them to look a bit like a bad police photo fit of yourself, drawn by a child, who is also a cop. I could say it only got weirder from there, but that would be a terrible lie. Animated interludes aside, this was still very much a traditional press conference, albeit an entertaining one. Part of the Super Smash Bros. Segment was given over to pimping amiibos, Nintendo's entry into the nascent toys-to-life market. In a nutshell, amiibos are little plastic figurines of Nintendo characters, each containing an RFID chip, which you can place on the NFC sensor on the Wii U controller to magically summon them into your game. You can then fight them yourself, pit them against your friend's own amiibos, team up with them to fight your friends and their amiibos, and other such wholesome activities. As they fight, they level up, growing more powerful, and you'll also be able to customise their powers. The idea is that your little figurine becomes your own unique version of that character. So your little Mario amiibo, for example, will have different powers from a friend's one, and both will be different to the standard Mario you can play as in Super Smash Bros. And more traumatic for kids who lose theirs down the drain or get theirs confiscated at school, as they inevitably will. And for that reason alone, this gets a thumbs up from me. As well as Super Smash Bros., Nintendo will also be bringing amiibo support to Mario Kart 8, a point they brilliantly illustrated with the now infamous Luigi Death Stare. From there, it was a sudden whiplash-inducing departure to the soft, fluffy wholesomeness of Yoshi's Woolly World, which is absolutely not a sequel to Kirby's Epic Yarn, although it is being co-developed by Goodfeel, who made Kirby's Epic Yarn, and everything in it does look all knitted and fabricy, except the piranha plants for some reason. Anyhow, it's a Yoshi game, a sedate 2D action platformer in which you eat enemies and then shit them out again, this time as balls of yarn, to fling at enemies and environmental objects like a chimp with a mind for puzzles. It also has a 2-player co-op mode, making it ideal for parents to play with their children. As cliched as that sounds, somebody had to say it, so it might as well be me. What, you're going to try and tell me it doesn't look like a game made for children? There's nothing wrong with that. It's not a bad thing. Should it be? Must every game be a frantic murder fest drenched in enough blood to drown the world 10 times over? Are you not satisfied with anything less than enough skulls to fill a Cambodian killing field? Are violence and murder the only reasons you play games anymore, huh? Huh? You sicko. Continuing on the theme of family friendliness, Nintendo are renowned for long-time Mario series supporting character and all-round fun guy. Toad is getting a game all of his own, which looks charming, I guess. Gameplay is based around changing camera angles to create new paths around the level, similar to Echochrome on the PS3, and a bit like Fez as well. Not quite enough to play exactly like it, but perhaps just enough to make Phil Fish appear in Satoru Iwata's mirror and demand Nintendo gives him some money. Or attention. This bit of the presentation caused me some cognitive dissonance, because you see, I've never considered Toad to be a cutesy character. Like many children of the 80s, I grew up watching the Super Mario Bros. Super Show, in which Toad always sort of talked a bit like Joe Pesci at a slightly higher pitch.
What are you trying to do, you wacko blade?
Or perhaps that's just me. Awful Nintendo cartoons are also the reason I imagine Mega Man smokes 80 a day.
I hate my birthday.
And who could possibly forget those 4 awful months in 1989 when Link was a smarmy, sarcastic, pointy-eared twat.
Hey, excuse me, princess.
Which is the best segue I could come up with to the new Legend of Zelda game Nintendo revealed for the Wii U. Deliberately harkening back to the original Legend of Zelda, it aims to recapture that game's sense of exploration and adventure with a fully open world a la Skyrim and The Witcher 3, with the now ubiquitous mountains you can see and travel to. Wind Waker doesn't count as fully open world, by the way, unless you're Kevin Costner in Waterworld. All Nintendo showed of the game was this bit of a field in the middle of nowhere where Link gets chased by a giant enemy crab before killing it with a lightsaber arrow. It does look bloody gorgeous though. Then there was the announcement of 2 new Pokemon games for 3DS, Pokemon Omega Ruby and Pokemon Alpha Sapphire, due out in November, which are apparently remakes of older Pokemon games. I could look up the exact details online, but that means I'd have to actually give a shit about Pokemon, which I don't. I do give a great many shits about Bayonetta 2 however, which looks as gloriously campy and silly as always, and still has no poxy sodding release date. Although Nintendo did reveal retail versions of Bayonetta 2 will also include a Wii U version of the original Bayonetta, with extra content in the form of Nintendo themed outfits for Bayonetta to wear. Copies of Bayonetta 2 bought on the Nintendo eShop however won't include Bayonetta 1 as standard, but will give you a discount on it should you prefer to buy it separately. Which you bloody well should, as it's one of the greatest spectacle fighters ever. For God's sake, towards the end of the game you ride a motorcycle up a rocket into space! What's not to like about that? Unless you hate fun. Speaking of awesomeness, we were also treated to some more juicy morsels of Hyrule Warriors, a collaboration between Nintendo and Tecmo Koei, combining The Legend of Zelda with Dynasty Warriors, unsurprisingly. For someone like me who has never played a Dynasty Warriors game, it looks genuinely interesting, exciting and impressive. And it's good to see Princess Zelda kicking ass for once instead of being a meek damsel you have to rescue. Only a Japanese release had been confirmed previously for August of this year, but it's now also coming to Europe and America in September. Other games announced included a new Kirby game, Kirby and the Rainbow Curse, where you guide Kirby around by drawing little rainbow bridges for him, while he transforms into rockets and motherfucking tanks, as well as a cinematic trailer for Xenoblade Chronicles X, the latest in the Xeno series of JRPGs stretching all the way back to Xenogears on the PS1. I don't have much to say about this except it looks as anime as you'd expect, albeit the kind of anime I can tolerate and even enjoy, and not the weird creepy kind of anime that makes me want to scour my flesh off with a wire brush before jumping into a bath full of bleach. Then there was Mario Maker, Nintendo's quiet capitulation to all those Mario ROM hack creators out there who've been building their own levels for years. Yes, having grown tired of creating new interesting Mario stages, Nintendo are now letting you try and do better by giving you the tools to craft your own rudimentary efforts for friends, loved ones and perfect strangers. You won't be recreating the brilliance of Super Mario Land 2 or Super Mario World with it, but it could still be fun. Although it does fly in the face of what Nintendo said earlier about there being no new Mario announcements. And finally, Nintendo unveiled a brand new IP, which is newsworthy in and of itself for a company that's been coasting along on its established characters since time immemorial, in the form of Splatoon, an 8-player 4v4 online multiplayer third-person shooter with strategy and map control elements. The basic idea is you and your team have to splatter a map with ink to gain territory while stopping your opponents doing the same. Simple really. Oh, except you can also turn into a squid that can swim really fast through your own team's ink, and jump about, and fly across the map at the touch of a screen to help your teammates splat any fools encroaching on your hood. It's a sort of quirky game a group of students at DigiPen would make, right before Valve gave them all jobs and told them to make a bigger and better version, only it's coming from within Nintendo instead. Needless to say, I was pleasantly surprised and yes, even impressed. This is the sort of stuff I want to see more of from Nintendo, fresh, genuinely inspired, original ideas of the sort they used to be known for. Back before they decided it was easier to just shit out yet another Mario game for the braying Nintendo fanboy peanut gallery. And like most of the games on show in this E3 presentation, it's not out until 2015, a recurring problem with Microsoft and Sony's announcements too. Throughout E3, Nintendo also showed off other games not featured in the main presentation, such as Codename Steam, a turn-based strategy game for 3DS, Project Giant Robot and Project Guard for Wii U. And on Sunday, Shigeru Miyamoto revealed he'd been working on a new Star Fox game for Wii U. None of these games were part of the main Nintendo E3 presentation, however, so Of the three presentations, Nintendo's was easily the most memorable and entertaining, with genuinely amusing humour segments contrasting nicely with the calm, laid-back showings of the games on offer. It was also a positive indicator that Nintendo is perhaps finally starting to comprehend this whole internet thing and the good it can do for them as a company. The games on display were also interesting enough to keep me paying attention, and, dare I say it, more than one of them makes me consider getting a Wii U. There were comparatively fewer of them, and most were still the same old Nintendo franchises, with a new twist of course, but they were presented well. I also have to give Nintendo credit for showing actual gameplay for the most part, rather than a carnival of pre-rendered cinematics like Microsoft and Sony did. Several questions remain, of course. Will this be enough to persuade more people to buy a Wii U? Or is it a case of too little too late, given Nintendo's already had a year's head start on its rivals? And what will Nintendo do to try and win back third-party developers, if it even chooses to try and do that? Only time will tell, of course, but I can answer one of the most pressing questions on people's minds. Who won E3? The answer being... nobody, because it's a stupid fucking question. Each of the big three's presentations had their pros and cons, but the pros outweighed the cons overall, and each had more than one thing to be excited for. If anybody won E3, it was us, the game buying public, but that's a stupid answer too, even if it is the most accurate one. You could also say E3 itself won, since this was the first time in years it felt even vaguely relevant and exciting. Everybody in gaming was talking about it with more than just a grudging token interest, and while Nintendo didn't have much of a physical presence at the event itself, their presentation was still undeniably a big part of it nonetheless. So yeah, that's my answer. The winner of this year's E3 was E3 itself. You won't hear that on IGN. And that's all for this special series of Pixel Burn videos covering E3 2014. If you liked it, please do let me know, and let your friends, family and Shigeru Miyamoto know as well. At the very least, I hope you found it tolerable. If you didn't like it, however, well, you won't have to put up with me next week, because I'm taking a well-deserved rest. For fans of the channel, I will try and get some other things put up, so you're not entirely bereft of entertainment. In the meantime, however, you can go now.